built up using styrofoam and cotton padding. Detailed pieces like the hands are then added. To get the true shape and texture, every joint of every finger must be welded individually. For the head, George Stuart first models a skull from imitation bone. The exposed flesh is made with an acrylic polymer material mixed with pigments and talc. It's applied in layers to create an incredible lifelike skin. Once the head and hands are finished, the figure can be dressed from the undergarments outwards, allowing the clothes to fall precisely as they would have done originally. George Stuart not only researches the garments, he makes all of them by hand using the George Stuart is a historian, and here in his workshop he's working on the fine details of his next lecture. George Stuart believes that in order to truly understand history, you have to get to know the people involved, so he creates them. He calls them historical figures, though they're now considered priceless. For George Stuart, they're simply props for his popular series of historic lectures.
This is an entertainment. I've been doing this for 30 years, trying to entertain people. I don't know how successfully, but that's the point of it. The British monarchy has been a source of fascination to English-speaking people for centuries. And their actions and their foibles have generated all kinds of amusement and horror, depending on your point of view about these things.
Amazingly, George Stuart developed all the skills necessary to make the figures himself. Entirely self-taught as an artist, he draws upon his previous roles of museum curator and actor to breathe life into his work. The results speak for themselves, like this magnificent Louis XIV, the Sun King. From sculpting the basic forms right through to working with metal, leather, and cloth, the intricate details are truly astonishing. Whether the figures are benevolent or evil, humble or haughty, George Stuart manages to capture every subtlety of their expression, every nuance of their demeanor, every thought and every emotion. It can take months to complete each 18-inch figure. First, a jointed wire skeleton is made, which fixes the figure's posture. The body is then built up using styrofoam and cotton padding. Detailed pieces like the hands are then added. To get the true shape and texture, every joint of every finger must be welded individually. For the head, George Stuart first models a skull from imitation bone. The exposed flesh is made with an acrylic polymer material mixed with pigments and talc. It's applied in layers to create an incredible lifelike skin. Once the head and hands are finished, the figure can be dressed from the undergarments outwards, allowing the clothes to fall precisely as they would have done originally. George Stuart not only researches the garments, he makes all of them by hand, using materials as near as possible to those used for the original clothing. This often means he has to search the world in order to find the craftsman or woman who can supply exactly what he needs. Whether he's making a lace ruff fit for a queen, or a shawl suitable for a president, or a tailored suit with bow tie and hat to match, everything must be perfect. There's a wealth of detail, for instance, just in the figure's footwear. The handcrafted leather used to create these boots and shoes is aged to give just the right impression of wear and use. Making the jewelry and accessories worn by the figures look convincing at this small scale is even more difficult. George Stuart says it's more than patience that gets the results. It's dogged determination and perseverance. Truly remarkable as they are, his figures only come to life when seen together with his lectures. Here he reveals little-known aspects about the life of England's Queen Victoria and her husband Albert.
It was an arranged marriage. She was absolutely sweaty with passion over Albert, absolutely drooling with lust over her husband. He devoted every waking and sleeping moment the rest of his life to her. He was totally devoted. When he died in 1861, the end had come for Victoria. At least everybody, including herself, thought so. Her family clustered up to her, and she said, "I will shortly follow dear Albert in death. I have just a few words of advice and admonition for all of you." Well, it took her 40 more years to deliver this. Victoria's life was far from over, despite what she thought. Now, her mourning never ceased. Wherever Victoria slept, whatever house or room she slept in, all the rest of her life, there was a photograph over the bed of Albert in his coffin. Yes, these were the deepest stages of mourning.
Victoria did find another companion, her faithful Highland servant, John Brown.
Brown always stood behind the Queen at meals. And when she got mad, her neck would get red. And this day, the Queen was basically a gracious person. So she had to address a few obligatory remarks to the Prime Minister. And she said, "Mr. Gladstone, how are the plans for London coming?" She wanted a brief answer, and then they'd go on from there. Well, Gladstone, being awkward, began to orate. And he went on with the plans of how the drainage ditches were being laid, and yes, Mom, the plans are on and off for the soup and the salad. The Queen wanted him to shut up, and he wasn't, and she began to get red in the neck, and Brown could see this. He knew the object of her fury. He stamped around behind the chair of the Prime Minister and punched him on the shoulder. "You've said enough!" To the Prime Minister. Well, of course, she nearly stifled. She thought this was so funny, but she couldn't say anything. Well, this is the way it went. It always went that way. The one thing about Victoria that is significant in my view is the age bore her name, but she was never a Victorian.
For every period of history he studied, every dramatic event, George Stuart has found that the best way to tell a story is to allow the audience to meet the people involved. For George Stuart, history is about the people who make it.